64 people, one morning of ash, and an average radiation dose near 1.6 gray, the heaviest civilian dose of the entire American nuclear program. The people who took it thought the ash was snow. This is the story of Rongelap, a small atoll in the Pacific, 150 kilometers from the biggest bomb the United States ever set off. The people there were never warned. Their children played in the fallout. They ate it, and within a week, they were turned into test subjects for a secret study without ever being asked. Let me take you back to the morning it started. March 1st, 1954. Bikini Atoll. The United States detonates a bomb called Castle Bravo. It's a hydrogen bomb, and it's meant to be big. The planners expected around 6 megatons. It came in at about 15. Nearly 3 times what they predicted. The scientists had made a mistake with the bomb's fuel, and it burned far harder than they thought it could. The fireball spread wider than any American test before it, and the wind, which was supposed to carry the fallout out to empty ocean, carried it east instead, straight over islands where people lived. You need to understand what fallout actually is here. When a bomb that size goes off close to the ground, it sucks up tons of coral, sand, and seawater. All of it gets pulled into the fireball and turned radioactive. Then it cools, and it falls back down. On Rongelap, it fell as a fine white powder. About 5 hours after the blast, that powder started drifting out of the sky. Now picture it from the ground. You're a child on a small island. You've never seen snow. You've heard of it, but you live in the tropics, so it's just a word from a story. And then this soft white stuff begins falling around you. It settles on your hair, your skin, the roofs, the drinking water. It tastes a little salty. So the children did what children do. They played in it. They rubbed it on their skin. Some of them ate it. According to survivor testimony from the Ann Jane family, nobody had any idea it was dangerous. Why would they? No one told them anything. That's the part I want you to sit with. There were 64 people on Rongelap, and every one of them was standing in the most radioactive dust on Earth, and not a single person came to say a word. Well, that's not quite true. Someone did come. On March 2nd, the day after the blast, 2 Americans flew in. According to the account of Magistrate John Anjane, they walked around the atoll, looked things over, and then left. They said nothing about the danger. They didn't hand out water. They didn't move anyone. They got back in their aircraft and flew away, leaving 64 people sitting in fallout that was already burning their skin. The evacuation didn't come until March 3. That's about 44 hours after the bomb went off. 2 days of eating, drinking, sleeping, and breathing inside a radioactive cloud that had settled onto everything they owned. By the time the Navy took them to Kwajalein for medical care, the symptoms had already started. Their skin itched and burned. Blisters formed where the ash had touched them. Their hair began to fall out in patches, people were vomiting, and in the medical files, their blood counts were dropping fast, which is the signature of acute radiation sickness. The dose some of them took reached around 175 rads before they were ever moved. Here's where the story turns into something worse than an accident. Within a week of the blast, the United States set up something called Project 4.1. On paper, it had a long clinical title. In plain terms, it was a study of what happens to human beings exposed to serious radiation from a nuclear bomb. It was led by a physician named Eugene Cronkite. You see, the American nuclear program had a problem it could never fix in a lab. You cannot ethically irradiate people to study them. But now, through a mistake with the wind, they had a group of human beings who'd already taken a huge dose, a ready-made experiment. And the Rongelapese became that experiment. They were examined, measured, and monitored. Doctors tracked their blood, their burns, their recovery. This went on for decades, and according to historians and to the survivors themselves, the people were never asked to consent to any of it. They were never even told a study was happening. As far as they knew, they were patients being treated. They didn't know they were data. In 1955, the findings from Project 4.1 were published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, one of the most respected medical journals in the world. Doctors across America read about the effects of fallout on human bodies. The bodies belonged to people who had no idea their suffering was in a journal at all. Then came 1957. The Atomic Energy Commission declared Rongelap safe again, so the people went home, back to the island where the ash had fallen. And in the records from that period, scientists noted something quietly chilling. They saw real research value in studying people who were living in a contaminated place. The return home wasn't just a return home, it was a continuation of the study. Think about what that means. Their island was still carrying the residue of the bomb. The soil, the plants, the crabs they ate, all of it held traces of what fell in 1954. And rather than treat that as a reason to keep people away, it was written down as a chance to learn more. Now here's the reckoning. Here's what all that data eventually showed. In 1976, a report from Brookhaven National Laboratory looked at the children of Rongelap, the ones who had been under 10 years old in 1954, the ones who ate the snow. About 69% of them had developed thyroid tumors, 20 children out of 29. Radioactive iodine had settled in their small thyroid glands and done its work over the years. Women suffered miscarriages and stillbirths. Cancers spread through the adult population as the decades passed. And in 2010, a National Cancer Institute analysis put a number on it. For the people exposed on Rongelap and the nearby atoll in 1954, roughly 55% of all their cancers could be traced back to the fallout. More than half. From a single morning of ash. By 1985, the people of Rongelap had had enough of waiting for anyone to help. They didn't trust that their island was safe. They didn't trust the promises anymore. So they made a decision. They would leave on their own. A dentist and senator named Jetun Anjane led it. He had been 8 years old in 1954, close enough to remember. He reached out to Greenpeace, and the crew of the ship Rainbow Warrior came. Over several trips, they moved the entire community, their belongings, even parts of their homes, to a new island called Mejato. They called it Operation Exodus. They evacuated themselves. 31 years after the bomb, no government moved them to safety. They packed onto a protest ship and left the home their ancestors had lived on for generations. So let's go back to that number I gave you at the start. 64 people, an average dose near 1.6 Gray, the heaviest civilian dose of the whole program. They were never warned as the ash came down, left in it for 2 days, studied for decades without consent. Sent back to a contaminated island because their continued exposure was useful, and more than half of the cancers that followed came from that one morning. The study that recorded all of it was published, praised, and cited. It just never bothered to ask the people it was written about.